Hello, family. Short clip here. We'll put this in entomology. Just want to say, here's a word. University. Let's break that down now. UNI VERSE ITY. So we'll start with the end. ITY. Like a seat of, or a place of, or a source of, if you will. Like, for instance, a city. A city is a place of. Crazy people. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But chances are you're going to run into a lot more psychosis if you're living in a big city. But anyway, itty, a place of. Uni is the first word, or the first root, first part of the root, word university. Uni means one. Verse, now, could, well, depending on how old the dictionary is that you're referencing. But you could say a verse is like a chapter and verse in the Bible. It could be a quote or a paraphrase of an ancient text, or a learned elder, a magi, a priest class, someone of the mystery schools. A verse could also be a line that you deliver, like what is your verse? What if you're on a stage and you're playing a character? What's the verse that when do you chime in? Also making reference to songs, because you have verse and a refrain within the song. But what is a word? What is a song? What is a verse, if not where does that come from? What comes before that? Perspective, right? Belief. If I have the belief and the perspective that going to university to get my degree will make me smarter, or will open up my career path to take certain jobs or whatever, fill in the blank, make me more marketable in the workplace. And if I have that belief, well, then I'm going to pursue an education with university. Typically. At least that was the way I was brought up to believe, right? And I did. I went to university. I want to say I went to university. I only went to a couple of brick and mortar outfits, where you actually get your books together and go to a classroom and sit in a class, right? I did try that, but I could pass the bachelor's level. I could not pursue like a master's degree in that regard, because, well, a lot of reasons. One was I was being nonstop deployed and moved around. Like on average, moving house like once every year or year and a half. And so I took up the online university programs, right? And ultimately, eventually, I spent a total of 24 years in university studies, obtaining 3 master's degrees. And the only thing I really know is that I don't know anything. But I do know that the university is a place of one word, one song, one belief, one perspective. How do I know this? Well, it's in the name. But I also had some practical experience with this, in that I was finishing up my first master's degree. What's the name of that program? I forget. It was a military university, an Ivy League university. It's called International Conflict Management and Resolution, something to that effect. And the professor he was I don't remember the guy's name now, but he was a former aide to Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State under Bill Clinton. Yep, one of those types. Wicked, just super wicked. Anyhow, this professor was an aide for Madeleine Albright, so enough said, right? And of course, he's a professor, so he spent his entire life behind the ivory tower in the university, in the educational, but never in the operational side of things. Whereas I had, and at the time I was finishing up this master's degree, I was, in fact, in Islamabad, Pakistan. It was year 2007, 2006, late 2006, late 2006, 2007. I was there for a total of 13 months. That was my second tour in Pakistan. And, I mean, literally, there was all kinds of activity going on there. I think it was Time magazine said Islamabad was the world's most dangerous capital city on the planet at that time, and for good reason. Mostly because all of us diplomats were over there, working in the embassies and the consulates and the United Nations and all the other NGOs and whatnot. Anyhow, there I was, in sector F7, a diplomatic zone. I had a security guard outside and stuff like that, but all the lead doors, and you can imagine it was. Anyway, a safe house. That's where I was staying, in sector F7 of Islamabad. And I could hear all kinds of, explosives, let's just call them explosives, going off on a regular basis. And I had 2, 3 friends that were caught up in some of these activities. Having their facilities bombed, or having the place that they were visiting, like the Marriott Hotel, was one of the famous places to bomb. Other restaurants and things like that. I won't tell you who. Oh, it was Al-Qaeda or some jihadist or whatever, yeah? Problem, reaction, solution. Anyway, there I was, pulling at least 12-hour days, but usually 14-hour days or more, working for various different alphabet agencies. And then in the evening, I went back to my safe house and whipped out my laptop and got my stack of books out and read, and regurgitated exactly how you're supposed to do, right? That's what they tell you in university. Like when they tell you to write a paper, they say, write a paper that basically regurgitates this perspective and these conclusions and theories that this perspective creates. And whose perspective is that? Well, who wrote the book? What books are on the curriculum of the university, right? The gatekeepers, the place of one word, one perspective, one verse. Never really my bag. So, of course, I had to say, hey, professor, because he asked us to write a paper. He basically was this. And how ironic, because I was right there in Pakistan. India's next door. Up until that point, we had, I'll just say go back to 1947, very recent. And this need to foment civil war on the ground in Southwest Asia for the purpose of the problem, reaction, solution. And it was this civil war that was fomented within India, and then they split off and became two separate countries based on religion, I guess. Like the ones in India were primarily Hindu now, and the ones in Pakistan were primarily Muslim, with some Christians and whatnot. I don't know. And then following this division or this balkanization of the Southwest Asia region, there was the selling of nuclear arms, because it's buildup, right? It starts out with the little stuff. It starts out with the small arms and the training of the foot soldiers and how to wage war against your enemies, right? Your neighbors, your brothers and sisters, right? You just have a different religion, but other than that, you're the same people. Genocide of your own people, right? That's through this mad, mutually assured destruction is where it ends up in, because it starts out, like I said, with the small stuff, the small arms, and then it moves from there to artillery, and then it moves from there to, larger corps of offensive artillery, like tanks, and then planes, and then jet fighters and bombers, and then the next thing you know, that's how it works. India got it first. They started out, and then the same defense industry contractors and all the other folks like myself that work for the alphabet agencies and our secure container information facilities would then work our contacts within the country, usually through political and military counterparts, to go to Pakistan and say, well, look, your arch enemy is India, and they have fill in the blank whatever weapon system it is. So that means you need to have the same weapon system, because if you have it, then they won't attack you with theirs, because they know that you can retaliate with the same level of technology of weapon systems, right? And then it just escalates like that all the way up into the point where we get to the mutually assured destruction, but not just within the confines of the space where you're conducting the battle, but by way of nuclear fallout. Just complete annihilation. Meaning India was given the technology, that's how the story goes, that they were given the technology to develop a nuclear bomb, to become a nuclear power. Nuclear dumbass. Power. It's not power, that's force. And then Pakistan got their nukes. Oh, they said it was some spy. I forget his name, Khan something or other, I can't remember. But no, it's all an inside job. So this professor says, here's the scenario. Pakistan has nuclear arms. India has nuclear arms. All diplomatic relations have fallen apart and they're about to go to war with each other, a nuclear war. Now describe the fallout of said war. Like, how many people are going to be killed? What's the direct impact of the kill radius? How far out does it spread from there? Where do the winds carry the nuclear fallout? How's that going to affect humanity, the environment, industry, the economy? And I just said, hey, like, basically the perspective was, who wins the war, right? So if India wins, if India initiates the nuclear attack, then describe the situation. Or if India initiates the attack and then Pakistan responds or retaliates with the same nuclear weapons, describe that. But it was I had to be that one that just said, look, I have a different perspective. And I could write a paper on this or that. It doesn't matter. I can regurgitate everything that the curriculum tells me to regurgitate. And I can even speculate, right? A little bit, not too much. As long as it stays within that universe, that one perspective. I said, but I have another perspective. Like, what if, instead of approaching things with a zero-sum perspective, like, this guy wins, so this guy loses, or this guy wins, so that guy loses, how about, instead of this competition, a perspective of cooperation? To say that there doesn't even have to be a war. And this is what the professor told me. This professor, who used to be the aide to Madeleine Albright, said, you're not allowed to have your own theories and perspectives. He didn't say the word perspective. He calls it, because in university we call it a theory. But what is a theory if not based on a perspective or an idea that I have, a unique perspective that I have, and here's my theory that comes from that perspective. And now I'd like to take my theory and apply it to the scientific method and explore to see if it's a valid theory or a valid perspective. Not allowed. He said, you're not allowed to have your own theories until you get to the PhD level. And even then, they have to be approved by the faculty, the gatekeepers, anyway. That's what I have to say about university. Don't get too hung up on that, people. If your parents are pushing it on you, or your grandparents, or aunts, or uncles, or peers, or whatever, just looky here. I'm not saying this is applicable across all the fields that you could study at the university. Like, I got a lot of friends who have like PhDs in snakes and PhDs in frogs and PhDs in birds, and they're marine biologists and and these kinds of things. But just be careful, because everything's got a perspective to it. Everything's got an angle. Every book that was written that's part of the curriculum is an approved curriculum for a reason. Because the universities are there to ensure that those who do seek, fill in the blank, knowledge, wisdom, to better themselves, to better the world, to hone their skills and their talents, yeah, and the ones that go to the brick and mortars, You know, when you're 18 and you get out of the public indoctrination camp called high school, and you move on from there to university, and you're staying in like a on the grounds and getting up and going. What do them kids be doing all the time? What is college kids known for doing? Drugs and alcohol. Trying to wash it down. Drown the sorrow. Make the reality a little less painful. Ingest the soma. Well, I don't know. It's because instinctively each one of us knows deep down within our heart of hearts that we're being indoctrinated in these universities. And 9 times out of 10, we're graduating with our degrees, and then we can't find work. But we still have to pay off all the student loans, don't we? Can't be forgiven of that, ever, right? And here's another example. I was finishing my second master's degree with another Ivy League university. And this one was in community and economic development. And one of my professors was actually the lead of an investigative research team within the university, you know, government-funded university study, outcome-based evidence, you know, tell us what we want to hear, do your scientific studies on this, give us the reports, and then we'll redact everything that we don't feel serves our needs, and then present the half-truths so that we can therefore justify the unjustifiable. And this university was in Pennsylvania, so that's where they were conducting the operations of the petrochemical industry called fracking. And if you want to find out more about that, please do. If you don't already know what it is, it's you know how violent and obsolete and caveman and ridiculous and harmful it is to drill holes in Mother Earth and suck out her cranial sacral fluid, aka fossil fuel. It's even way more invasive and destructive than this fracking, because it shatters the underground and allows gases and other things that the supposed to be contained. It allows that to be split up and released, and it poisons the water tables. So it's not enough to poison all the rivers and the lakes and the streams and the oceans, but now we're going to contaminate irreparably, permanently contaminate the water tables and cause earthquakes. How smart is that? Guess what? As I speak, I'm sitting here in front of this laptop, and it just shut itself down. It says it's restarting because it updated. I don't want any updates, Windows. I'm good. Anyway, little diversion there, but bottom line is this professor, he was heading up this study for the fracking business and Halliburton and that. And I said, hey, professor, can you share some of the findings of your team? I don't even personally know why there needs to be any scientific university exploration of this whatsoever. Common sense will tell you. And we have had the feedback already that we need. many multiple earthquakes going on in the area, all that shale area. And I'm referring to up there near Pennsylvania and the surrounding areas, all the extra earthquakes that are happening, all the crap that's coming out of the water. You can see when people turn on their taps, the water's just running with just, it doesn't even look like water. Flammable. They'd take like a lighter and stick it up next to the water coming out of the tap, and the water would catch on fire. I'm not sure why you need a university study to tell you why this is not a good idea. That right there is the feedback and the evidence that we need to see that this is not a good idea. So, Professor, can you share some of your research and conclusions with us? Whoosh, complete radio silence. Like, if I could say, it's an online format, so we're having this discussion, and everybody's meant to chime in and participate in the discussion. So I chimed in with my comments to the thread, and the professor makes it a point to address every single person who brings up, it's like kind of like raising your hand in class and saying, hey, professor, blah, blah, blah. And then the professor comes back with his or her perspective and whatever. So in my entire online university experience, I never saw a thread where a student posted a comment, directly a question to the professor, and the professor just ignored it. Ever. I never saw that. Until that day. Sure, he did not answer that question. No, he did not. And I asked it again a second time just to be sure that, he didn't get overwhelmed with all the comments and back behind in grading his papers, and maybe he just overlooked it and it was an accident. And I said, hey, professor, did you get a chance to look at my question? I posted it on this date at this time. It's in the thread. Nope. No answer. So, enough said. That's how I feel about university, as a general rule. Anyway, hope that's been helpful. If it has, it's been my blessing to share it with you. And until we speak again, I will see you in the dream world. Ciao for now.